Ethiopia had three constitutions before it landed on the one in 1994. So one had to be superseded by the other until the very constitution that is being used as we speak. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Addis Dialogue. What are the pros and cons of this constitution? In this regard, my guest today is Dr. Tewodros Zewdu, who has thoroughly examined Ethiopia's constitutions as part of his wonderful research undertakings. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of the constitution and other issues along that line with the program. I'm Shifarao Lako. Do stay with us. Teddy, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So before we jump into the meat of our discussion, I really want you to give me this synopsis of the former constitutions. What are the strengths and the weaknesses, the pros and cons that you saw, especially as part of your research undertakings?
Okay, thank you. Well, judging by my own understanding and then research experience, the one that was composed in 1955, the monarchical, under the monarchical regime, was was centered on the privilege of the monarch, and then the one that was crafted by the military regime was the constitution centered on labor. So the focus was labor, and then the third one was identity. So the privilege of the monarch, the rights of the laborers or the proletarians, and then identity politics. And then when we put them in context, the one that was composed under the monarchical regime, well, I looked at it as a step forward. Okay. Because before that, what governed the people was the prerogative of the monarch. But when you have a written document saying that we will all be governed using this document, that was a step forward from our historical political history. And then the one that was composed by the military regime actually was the product of multiple intellectuals. They studied the ethnic composition of Ethiopia, coming from the Department of Law, the Department of Sociology, Department of Anthropology, History. Multiple intellectuals studied Ethiopia and then composed that constitution as a way forward to come out of vacuum, political vacuum. Before that, what we consider the military regime was ruling Ethiopia without any constitutional mandate.
Right.
And then so the backing of intellectuals, but when we come to the 1994 constitution, there was no intellectuals studying Ethiopia as it is, and then coming up with this constitution. It was, to me, imposed. What makes them common? The three of them was designed, I looked at it using this concept known as original position, a concept that was developed in 1972 by an American philosopher. To him, he said, a constitution usually must be designed what he called from the original position, meaning that the body as it is, from the hands of nature, as it is, and then you have to step back. He called that stepping back. He called it veil of ignorance, meaning that you don't know your place in a society. When you have no knowledge of your place in a society, you'll be in a better position to write a constitution. You'll be in a better position to set rules. The one that was composed under the monarchical regime was composed not from the original position, but from the position of the monarch. The military regime was composed from the position of the military regime, although the focus was labor. And then the 1994 constitution was composed from the position of ethnic groups. The individual was missing. Although there is rights and freedoms about individual rights, but the individual, the fact that the individual, naked as it is from the hands of nature, was missing from the three constitutions.
That's great observation indeed. Now, fast forward to the present constitution, to the constitution which is being used as we speak. You know, whenever we talk about this constitution, two extremes or two groups come to the fore. On the one hand, we have these people that say that this constitution is so perfect that it needs no amendment whatsoever. So as such, they try to romanticize it, if you like. On the other hand, there are other groups of people that are quite the opposite. They don't want anything to do with this constitution, and all they want is, you know, get rid of this constitution. So we have this dichotomy between these two groups of people. What is your observation of this dichotomy?
Okay, I mean, my observation is I come at it from the position of mixed ethnic people.
Okay.
You know, as you said, the two sides, one looking at it saying, you know, those sides who rejected this constitution, they looked at it as a mechanism to undermine national identity. And then those group who romanticize it, they looked at it as a document that answered what they call nationalities questions.
All right.
But to me, you know, when we examine a constitution, we need to look at it as a document that's supposed to facilitate integration. You can have a document that can be used as a mechanism to include people or to exclude people. And in 1994 Constitution was designed to exclude those people with mixed ethnic background, because the focus of that constitution was single ethnic identity, as if Ethiopia was made, or Ethiopia was housed, or Ethiopia was inhabited by single ethnic group. So the first thing that comes out of my study was the exclusion of mixed ethnic people from this current document. That tells me there was no empirical studies, or there is a mismatch with the empirical reality of Ethiopia, which is inhabited by mixed and single ethnic people, and then what was written in that document. I mean, this is, I look at that as a step backward, because what was missing from Ethiopian document, constitutional document, was to include people and then to match that document with the empirical reality of Ethiopia. You know, the 1955 Constitution was matched with the interest and wishes of the monarch, and then the 1987 Constitution was matched, although, you know, one can make an argument it was a better constitution than the two, but at least matched with the political orientation of the regime. And then this one was matched with the political orientation of EPRDF. And then in that case, it didn't serve, was designed not to serve the interests of the people, but the interests of the party. And then what Ethiopia needs is to have a written document that actually reflects the wishes and desires of the people.
So how can the dichotomy or the differences or these two extreme groups, how can they be rectified? What's the halfway between the two?
A nation state, by virtue of its nature, always faces a complex and range of issues. And the two sides can be resolved by bringing the empirical reality to the fore. The two sides must look to the empirical reality. Otherwise, if the two sides coming at it from their position, in this case, their political orientation or their ideological orientation, we will never find a middle ground.
Okay.
And we have to step back, as I said, to the original position. Step back, meaning that you have to let go your ideological position, your economic position, your social position. The two sides must let go, and then they need to make the empirical reality of Ethiopia the center of attention.
Okay.
And I think the national dialogue, I believe that the fact that they are going to discuss the problems of Ethiopia with the people, you see, that wasn't done. You see, at least those intellectuals who composed the 1987 Constitution did that. They discussed the various multiple issues with the people. Although, while they were discussing that, the mixed ethnic identity wasn't part of their discussion. At least they did that. They did that. And so the solution to our problem is, to bridge the two gaps, two sides. To bridge the two sides, we need to bring the empirical reality to the surface.
Empirical evidence.
Yes.
Okay. Or pragmatic solutions to the issues that's at hand. Okay. Let's talk about the positive side of this constitution. I think this constitution has a lot to recommend, especially when it comes to human rights, fundamental, basic human rights or individual rights. It gives, I think, a large portion of its section, maybe more than 1/3 of its section is dedicated to the human rights, if I'm not mistaken. It also gives due attention to democracy, freedom of speech, things like that. So in your study of this constitution, what are some of the things that this constitution need to be praised for?
I think, there was some grievance by multiple ethnic groups, and this constitution partly answered that question, saying that your rights will be protected under the law. So that's the positive side of this constitution. But protecting the rights of ethnic groups should not be come at the expense of other ethnic groups. So the negative side, which outweighs the positive side, is that it ignores the other ethnic groups. In this case, the mixed ethnic groups were completely ignored. They weren't even part of the language in the Constitution. Ethnicity was conceived as the product of single ethnic group. And so that part was completely wrong. And then at the same time, this Constitution, Article 34(3), says that the family unit is a fundamental unit of society. It says that this is very important unit, therefore should be protected by the people and the government. But, while one can praise it, saying that there is protection for the family unit, but when you look at it from using mixed ethnic people as a lens, you will see their family unit not being protected by this constitution, meaning that because when they come to our house, the first thing they ask you is, we want you to be in line. We want you to claim your father's descent as your identity, and then what about my, the integrity of my family? So that such approach automatically poses or forces the mixed ethnic family unit to disintegrate. And so if the family unit is the basis of society, if the family unit is the basis of identity, then one should look at the empirical reality of Ethiopia and then make an adjustment according to the empirical reality. So the positive side, which that says we are here to protect the rights and privileges of of ethnic groups cancels itself out when it's looked at from position of mixed ethnic people.
The other issue that this constitution is criticized for is the fact that it gives unduly too much emphasis on ethnicity, on federalism. It also talks about these volatile issues of separation or secessionalist ideas, things like that. So what are some of the hiccups, the shortcomings that you've personally seen, apart from the things that you've just told me?
Well, the hiccup is there is no human being in the Constitution. You see, when Rawls said we have to step back to the original position, his device of analysis was the body as it is. So the body as it is missing in this Constitution. You start from the body, and then when that becomes your unit of analysis, then you bring a discussion that facilitate a better mechanisms for the body. But the Constitution started from a group interest.
Corporate interest.
Yes. Therefore, the individual is missing. The individual is completely missing. The individual is subject to the privilege and prerogatives of the groups. Okay. So that's the hiccup. Because the individual is a sovereign entity. When we bring people to the discussion, we have to look at them as an individual autonomous body, autonomous entities. So there is no autonomy for the individual, but there is an autonomy for the group. But in this case, the group autonomy is also crafted using single ethnic group as a model. And then so the individual must be protected. That's why, in my constitutional discourse on hunger, I looked at the three constitutions, their understanding of the body. Their understanding of the body. There was no understanding of the body because the rights and freedoms started from without.
Okay.
Without. So the body as it is, we have to look at it, the interest of the body. So in this case, there was no discussion of protecting the body from hunger, what I call the enemy within. So the hiccup is the missing element in this constitution is the individual. The surface of identity in Ethiopia, the central character of that surface is fluidity, hybridity. And then one cannot be boxed into identity X.
Okay.
And there is always fluidity. And then this is not also the case in Ethiopia. This can be seen across the globe and then across Africa. But this constitution hardened the borders, the identity borders, saying that I see you as ethnic X only. So that misses the fluidity. Human being by nature, we are fluid. We go and then we are free to adapt, to add more personality, more identity to our body, So the fluidity is missing, and the hybridity is missing. We have this hybrid identity. You are a journalist, and then in the weekend you might be interested in mechanics, and then you might be interested into sports. You can engage in multiple activities. So that gives you hybrid identity. And then again, that's the mismatch again with this boxing the body into a single identity versus what's happening on the ground. That's a big problem, because when you have a mismatch between what the people do on daily life, you can go any place in Ethiopia,
right.
Just while having lunch, you can hear the music blasting multiple ethnic groups' music. That's perfectly fine with Ethiopians. They can get up and dance or enjoy the music. That was the experience of Ethiopia. That speaks fluidity. That speaks fluidity. And then fluidity is important for the body, also for integration.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? In the absence of fluidity, hybridity, you will have this rigidness. So the problem of this constitution is hardening the borders between character 1 and character 2. Identity 1 and then identity 2. And then not recognizing the hybridity as part of human experience. It wasn't designed to say that the humans do go through this process of fluidity and hybridity. That's a human experience, and then it's a universal. It's a universal,
Yes.
But that part is missing.
All right. Do you also see another issue of mobility? Of course, you talked about this fluidity, which is a wonderful idea. Do you see any sort of issues when it comes to mobility?
Definitely. That also, I'm glad that you raised that question, because the defining character of modernization is mobility. Mobility in terms of social ranks, in terms of economic standing, in terms of territory. People move from place X to place Y in search of a better life. So the defining character of modernization is missing from this constitution. When the intention of this constitution is to match identity with territory, matching identity with territory, which is that goes in contrary to the historical experience of the Ethiopian people. And then mobility is an important concept. Mobility facilitates integration. And when you restrict people from mobilizing in terms of their
ethnicity,
identity, then you will create attention. So attention between people, attention between neighbors, attention between ethnic groups, and then there was no emphasis on mobility at all. The emphasis was restricting, and what the name itself speaks volume. Qillal, the fact that Qillal was used to level geographical places was to restrict people's movement. When you have the former name Kafla Hagar, part of a country, and meaning that this is part of the country, that part is also part of the country. So people can mobilize and move from place to place as they wish. From where I came from, one can free to move from place A to place B in search of a better life, and then I think that's the most important element that's missing from this constitution. The regional government, they do have their own constitution, and then they don't count people. To them, this land is my land, this Qillal is my Qillal. Whoever residing in this part must be treated as a secondary citizen. So it creates this demarcation between people, and distancing people from calling a place my home. What makes mobility important is what makes it important is you're allowed to claim a place, your home,
as your own.
And that part is missing.
That's a great insight, I think, great perspective, Doctor. Also, some blame, the current issues, the conflicts, the strifes, things like that, on the Constitution. To what extent is this true, if you have made some observations?
It's absolutely, those people do have a solid ground to criticize this Constitution, because this Constitution says that you as a person you don't exist. You as an ethnic group, you exist. your identity comes from your affiliation or association with ethnic X or ethnic Y. In that case, it becomes an escalator for tension.
It's like enclavement, something like that.
Exactly. Before that, we have lived under the military regime for 17 years, and the focal point or the political orientation was you as a laborer, you as a proletarian, you'll be, your rights as a proletarian. Therefore, you can go from A to B selling your labor. In this constitution, one cannot go from A to B to sell labor. One must travel using ethnicity as a currency. What you bring to the table, not your labor, but you have to bring your identity. And then so your identity is a currency for a movement of people. And from that angle, this constitution, as I said, sharpens the tension between various ethnic groups.
Let's suppose that this constitution is to be amended. Supposing that this constitution is to be amended, what are some of the things that the constitution should include? How should the constitution be revitalized?
I believe the number one thing we need to do is to start from the position of the body as it is. As it is, and then meaning that you don't know you are part of the majority or part of the minority group.
Okay.
But you, as an individual, can you survive in Ethiopia? You see? So the first thing that must be done is using individual as unit of analysis. And then I think that's the best way to amend the constitution. If we start again from the position of groups, then some are majority, others are minorities. You know what I mean? Then this majority and minority issue will come to the surface. And then in order to resolve that, one must look at it, as I said, from the original position. You have to center it on the interest of the body as it is, naked. The 1994 constitution was designed with the backing of a military might. So I have the gun, therefore I can say whatever I want to say. That's not the way to write a constitution.
It's coercive.
Exactly. And then we have seen the result. The result was a mismatch between the document and the empirical reality of Ethiopia. And so the individual should be the center of attention, and then the focal point should be the individual.
How should Ethiopia, take some lessons from other nations that revisited their constitution? What lessons should this East African nation take?
I mean, you see, I believe Ethiopia is the only country in the world that actually put a great emphasis on ethnicity as the basis of association, the basis of affiliation. Other nations, like you can take, for instance, where I came from, I mean, North America, the American Constitution was designed by claiming all individuals as equal and sovereign entities.
Okay.
Equal and sovereign entities. In this case, you have no majority and minority issues. You are individual, you as an individual. So this document can provide a working solution for Ethiopia, because America is governed by using the federal system, but this federal system was designed to facilitate inclusion. The Ethiopian federal system was designed to, as I said, to restrict mobility, and then to ignore the wishes and desires of the individual. So one must take American Constitution as an example to craft a new constitution. Also using the concept of the original position, and then also the dialogue. As I said, the dialogue between the people. What's missing in Ethiopian constitution is, in this, especially in the current constitution, is there was no dialogue at the beginning. In fact, Professor Mesfin Oldemariam identified this problem like 30 years ago when the discourse was then saying that the government said constitution come to being when a government and the people make a deal. So
Okay.
they looked at it as a deal between government and the people. No, they said, the government, the constitution is the product of dialogue between the people. It's not a dialogue between the people and the government.
Okay.
The government comes after the constitution was crafted to administrate that constitution, and then especially for efficiency purpose.
Wow.
So we need to go back.
Okay.
And then, the national dialogue, as I said, is an example.
Yeah.
So it's facilitating a dialogue between the people. What should be included, what should not be included in this document.
Yes.
And then we have to rewrite the constitution using original position as a base, and then allowing people freely to speak their mind freely.
I hope the upcoming national dialogue will, solve these issues. Dr. Tewodros Zewdu, thank you so much for coming to our studio and giving us such a wonderful insights and thoughts.
Thank you for having me. You guys are doing a wonderful job in promoting ideas and facilitating dialogue, and then Addis Dialogue is doing that, and then I strongly support this platform.
Thank you so much. Well, dear viewers, thank you as well for having been with us so far. Until I see you next time with another program, it's goodbye from me, Shifa Rawlago. Stay safe and take care.